Thank you all for being here this evening. Your attendance is a clear indication that you care for this company, and I look forward to getting to know each of you in the years to come. Now that my family has officially begun this new chapter in our lives, I'm looking forward to so many things, to building relationships, to tailgates and sporting events and concerts and museums, and of course, adding much more orange to my wardrobe. So I have my first here as a pocket square. So I have a feeling that's going to happen. I feel so blessed by this opportunity to join Knoxville Opera, especially at this time in our history. I'd like to begin with a quick overview of our activities, including the surprising successes we've had in what has obviously been a very challenging year. We've begun work on updating KO's mission, vision, and values. We've adopted new financial controls and policies. We've made some revisions to HR policies. We've implemented a huge ticketing and donor platform that has already begun to make a tremendous impact on our day-to-day operations. And I hope you're all starting to see, even without performances and us doing tickets, that our interaction with you is becoming much more streamlined and efficient. And thank you for our staff who's helping implement that. We've expanded our social media presence. We've updated our website. Check it out, knoxvilleopera.com. We have new tools for our email platforms, marketing efforts, et cetera. We're also working to operationalize our equity, diversity, and inclusion within all of our programs and policies. Thanks to Zoom, I've been able to begin building relationships with over 150 stakeholders. Now, if we haven't met yet, let's set something up. I'm going to be here July 1, so we can start then. I'd like to speak a little bit about our fundraising and stewardship efforts. We've mailed 372 personalized donation acknowledgement letters, most within 24 to 48 hours. I've been assisted by several members of the board and guild to send 557 personal cards and letters to our various supporters. We've retained gifts from 177 donors. That means households that gave last year in fiscal 20 that renewed their support this year. And I will note that 95 out of those 177 people, that is 54% for those counting, increased their giving this year. So yay on that. We have recovered 73 lapsed donors. So these are households that gave in previous years, but for whatever reason, not last year. But we brought 73 of them back this year. We've received $59,463 to be precise in donations from 131 first-time donors. So in a COVID year, remarkable, absolutely remarkable. So I'll note that our fundraising goals were modest this year, for obvious reasons, but nonetheless, it's a remarkable success that we have exceeded our fundraising goal this year by 46%, by almost 50%. And yeah, it's that level of support is nearly in line with previous seasons that included opera performances and guild events and not COVID. So that really is, and I should note two things as well, that these results do not include government relief programs, et cetera, PPP and the others. And also, while we've had fundraising success, that is also without support from some of our key corporate and foundation donors. So as their giving priorities have shifted, we're going to be working very hard and pay close attention to how we might renew those very important relationships. So there's a lot of work to be done. But once the fiscal year is complete, next week, we are going to create an annual report that will be available for public view with all these important data points and more. So as I began thinking and contemplating about, all right, a State of the Opera address, I began by asking myself this question. If I were standing in this spot 1 year ago, what would I have said? We had canceled all of our performances, canceled the Rossini Festival. Our world was spiraling because of the pandemic, the sickness, the deaths, the shutdowns, the separation. The primary theme of that talk would be, I can't breathe. With that statement, what first comes to mind is obviously George Floyd. Last June was a tipping point in our society and has given rise to a new and necessary civil rights movement. It required each of us as individuals and as institutions to engage in honest self-reflection in order to oppose racism, advocate for equality, and promote racial tolerance. I can't breathe. With COVID, our breath, which is what makes singing possible, our breath, our very life force, became a danger to us and to those around us. This year has been defined by masks and separation. We had to turn to our devices to get our work done, for entertainment, and most importantly, to stay connected to those we love. Over the past year, we've felt that collective hunger for art and communal experiences, but you can't, frankly, truly feed those needs with a click of a mouse. So 1 year ago, we were asking ourselves, when will we return to the theater? What are we going to do in the meantime? The financial prospects, as Eden mentioned, were really grim. Our season planning had projected a $250,000 deficit. So that was my very first day on the job. So if I'd written down my 5 biggest wishes for our COVID season 1 year ago, it would have looked something like this. Number 1, a vaccine. Well, through the miracle of modern medicine, we have them. Number 2, continued generosity from our supporters. As I indicated just a few moments ago, this community has been remarkably responsive and supportive. Number 3, I like to call the alphabet soup of government support. Programs like PPP, SERG, NEA Cares, ERTC, SVOG, these all mean something, but they're sources that have tremendously helped small businesses and nonprofits such as Knoxville Opera. Number 4 would have been a wish that KO would present live free performances to 45,000 households across more than 100 Knox Opera for All events, our streamed performances, and our televised PBS special. Thanks to the tireless work of Maestro Selesky, we did all of that. And finally, number 5, avoid a budget deficit. We did that too. So these 5 wishes came true, and we're very thankful for that. But of course, we were disappointed that we didn't get to produce any theatrical productions. But we are also keenly aware of the bigger realities. I mean, there was a fear of sickness and a heightened sense of vulnerability. We saw the rise of this new civil rights movement. And lastly, not only did the virus separate us, but so did our politics. So as I stand here today, the theme of today's talk would be the next normal. We've seen explosive creativity over the past year, all over the world, and I'm proud to say right here in Knoxville. As I look out and I see Maestro Selesky, James Marvel from UT Opera, Catherine Frady from Marble City Opera, I think it is worth pointing out that the most essential element of opera, the singing voice, has been a consistent beacon of light and hope in Knoxville throughout the pandemic. And I'd like to take a moment to brag about my new city, because at a time when the easiest thing to do is remain silent and wait it out, our staff and our artists have put in a heroic effort to bring performances, as we said, to every corner of our city. You'd be hard-pressed, in fact, to find any city, I challenge you to this, find any city in this entire country that has had a comparable number of live and streamed performances than our local opera companies. So please join me in acknowledging these artistic leaders, as well as our dedicated staff, board members, volunteers, all of whom have collectively made this possible. Bravi. It's difficult to predict, obviously, what lies ahead. But as we look to the canvas of the years ahead, I invite you to be part of the conversation as Knoxville Opera examines our priorities, reimagines who we are, what we do, and how we do it. So we're absolutely thrilled to be back at the Tennessee Theater, which will have been 2 years since we will have been in that theater. 2 years. Achieving performance excellence has always been a worthy goal of an opera company, but artistic excellence simply is not enough when our communities are in desperate need of healing, of unity, of equity, justice, empathy, reconciliation. So our return to the theater will also be accompanied by an effort to help our community connect with one another, recover from the isolation and division that has characterized the past year. The wave of government relief, and in addition to our 501c3 nonprofit status, it comes with an obligation, and people will hear me say this all the time, it comes with an obligation to serve the public good. That's what makes us a nonprofit. So that's taxpayer money. And if I'm honest, it's not simply made available for us to preserve opera for opera lovers. Opera is a powerful tool. Because we're a nonprofit, because we receive, we must give back. And we can use the tools of opera to do just that. As creators and collaborators and storytellers, we can lift up our community without borders into full civic participation. It's a privilege that we can make Knoxville a better place to live. We can enhance the cultural vitality of our community with activities such as Knox Opera for All. We can create a sense of belonging through a culture of inclusivity and a commitment to accessibility. In addition to the classic opera masterpieces, we will commit to presenting accessible new works to tell relevant stories that have been underrepresented on our stages. During our recent fundraiser, I talked a little bit about this opera called The Falling and the Rising. It's a new American opera based on interviews with soldiers at Walter Reed Memorial Hospital. And this opera not only gives us a small glimpse of these soldiers' lives, but it tells their story in their own words. And what is particularly striking about this opera is there's also a military chorus, which is comprised of all local, both retired and active personnel from all the branches of the military. And it's this type of co-creation, these storytellers being woven into the story and engaging your community in that co-creative process. This is the type of thing that you can do with new works that helps us discover new heroes and understand and give voice to these stories. So we look forward to having all the full rehearsals again with our artists, our chorus, the production teams, the Knoxville Opera Gospel Choir, which, by the way, I've had the privilege of coordinating these monthly Zoom meetings with the Gospel Choir. And since the pandemic began, which was a great way to help them feel connected with one another, we would discuss and offer prayer to those in our community who are really suffering, and to discuss plans for their returns to rehearsal, which will hopefully happen this summer, and we could get started. And I'm very excited to see the Knoxville Opera Goes Back to Church program. So, when we get that on the books, we'll certainly let you know. Talking about the university, our future work with the university, particularly the UT Opera Studio, offers a lot of possibilities for investment and growth, and how we can help these graduate students prepare to be compelling, not only professional artists, but professional citizen artists. Because again, the obligation of artists to be your ambassadors is a very real thing, and teaching these singers to do just that. Another thing I'd like to tell you about is I'm delighted to announce that Knoxville Opera next year will have its first Director of Education and Community Engagement, and she'll be the brilliant Professor Lanika Batiste. If you know her at all, she's going to be just a gem part of our team. This coming year, Lanika is going to help us create the first neighborhood choir after-school program. So this is a really exciting joint venture between Knoxville Opera, the University of Tennessee Music Education Department, and Sarah Moore Green Elementary School. So the basic premise behind the neighborhood choir program is basically that rather than requiring parents bring their kids to their choir rehearsals, the concept of this is to bring the choir to the child, where they are in their space and in their place. And what makes this program so unique and special is we will actually have students from the University of Tennessee studying music education get firsthand experience in teaching music to these children and caring mentorship of these kids. So I'm really excited about the potential that this might have. And I envision, down the road that we have neighborhood choirs in every corner of our city. And perhaps at the end of the year, dream with me a little bit, that we'd have this opportunity to bring all of them together on one big stage, and perhaps a beautiful theater that some of these children and their families may never have seen or experienced before. And gathering them together for collective performance with real life opera singers and the opera chorus, the gospel choir, and taking pride in performing on a big stage in front of their family and their friends and neighbors from communities all across the city. Now, I say all of these things just because these are just a couple examples of many ways that Knoxville Opera can play its part by being an engine of civic pride in a way that brings all of us together with smiling faces. And it's also an example of the transformative, connective power of the human voice. And so I'll conclude, I've gone on long enough, but I'll conclude simply by saying that I'm absolutely humbled by the support I've seen from this community so far, from my new hometown. And we're going to need all of you to weather the storm that lies ahead. We don't know what's coming, and it's going to be challenging, but we've certainly proven that we can persevere. And I sincerely hope that you will advocate and support all the arts in Knoxville, because they are the lifeblood of our civic life. So with that, be well, be good, be kind, and God bless. Thank you.